All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating case from India's Supreme Court, Amar Jain versus the Union of India. And let me tell you, this is more than just a legal battle. It's a story that redefines our most basic rights for the digital age we're all living in. It's about making sure that progress doesn't accidentally build new walls.
So I want you to just think about this for a second. What if a simple, everyday action, blinking your eyes, was the one thing standing between you and your money? For most of us, that sounds, kind of ridiculous, but for some people, it's a very real, very frustrating technological gatekeeper that locks them out of the modern world.
And that whole blinking eye problem, it's a perfect example of what you could call a digital wall. We're seeing this incredible push for a digital India, right? All about making things faster, more efficient. But what happens when that same technology, the very thing that's supposed to connect us, actually ends up creating barriers that some people just can't get past?
Yeah, this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the one hand, you have the promise of digital know your customer, or KYC. It's supposed to be this super easy, fast, and secure process. But on the flip side, for a whole lot of people, the reality is the total opposite. It's being excluded, getting frustrated, and ultimately just being denied access to essential services.
So what does this digital wall actually look like? Well, it's built brick by brick with all these seemingly small tech details. It's an app that demands a live photo where you have to blink. It's facial recognition software that doesn't give any audio clues to someone who's visually impaired, so they don't know how to line up their face. It's those annoying CAPTCHA tests you can't even see, or form fields a screen reader can't understand. And it's a system that won't take a thumbprint, even though that's a perfectly valid legal signature.
And look, these aren't just some abstract theoretical problems. This entire case was brought to the court by real people who are slamming into these barriers every single day. So let's meet the people who decided to fight back.
These petitions were spearheaded by incredible individuals like Amar Jain, who is an advocate and also visually impaired, and Pragya Prasun, an acid attack survivor whose injuries make it physically impossible to do things like blink for a camera. They basically took on these discriminatory KYC rules, arguing that this lack of access was a violation of their fundamental right to equality and even their right to life. I mean, for them, being locked out of the digital world meant they couldn't do the basic things the rest of us just take for granted.
And the stakes here were unbelievably high. We are not talking about a small inconvenience. This was about the ability to open a bank account, to get a new SIM card for your phone, to access financial services, or even to receive government benefits. In short, this was about the basic right to even participate in a society that is moving online faster every single day.
So this all brings us to the main event, the legal climax of this whole story. The Supreme Court had this massive question in front of them. How does the law protect people when technology, in its race forward, accidentally starts to trample on their rights?
Now, a really key legal idea at the center of all this was something called reasonable accommodation. It sounds a little formal, but it's a principle from the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. And it's not just about being nice, it's a legal duty to make necessary changes, like offering a different way to do KYC so that absolutely everyone can access services on an equal playing field.
And this is where the court made this incredibly powerful connection. They said, you know what? When digital platforms are inaccessible, it's not just a design flaw or a bug. It is a direct violation of the fundamental right to equality, and this is the big one, the right to life, both guaranteed by the Indian Constitution.
And that reinterpretation of the right to life is honestly the most groundbreaking part of this whole judgment. The court didn't just see life as, breathing and having a pulse. They looked at what it truly means to live a life with dignity in our modern, super-connected world.
The judgment itself says it so perfectly, I just have to read it. It says, bridging the digital divide is no longer merely a matter of policy discretion, but has become a constitutional imperative. The right to digital access, therefore, emerges as an intrinsic component of the right to life and liberty.
Wow.
Just let that sink in.
So what does this all mean? The court effectively established a new, fundamental right for our time, the right to digital access. It's the constitutional recognition that to live a complete life today, you have to be able to use the digital tools of society, period, without discrimination. It's not an optional extra anymore. It's an absolute necessity.
Okay, so a powerful ruling is one thing, but turning it into a reality is something else entirely. So what happens now? Well, the court didn't just state a principle and walk away. They laid out a very clear action plan.
The court basically handed out a to-do list. First up, the Reserve Bank of India has to figure out new ways to do those liveness checks that don't rely on blinking. Second,
All KYC apps and websites now have to go through mandatory accessibility audits. Third, and this is so crucial, people with disabilities have to be involved in the testing process of these services. And finally, officials at banks and in government need to be trained to understand these issues so they can actually help people.
The ripple effect of this is just huge. This judgment sends this crystal clear message to every tech developer, every bank, and every government agency out there. Accessibility is not an afterthought. It's not a nice to have. Inclusion has to be baked in from day one. It's about building a digital future that works for everybody.
And that leaves us with a final, really interesting thought. This ruling updated the right to life for the digital age. It kind of makes you wonder, as our world gets more and more tangled up with technology, what other fundamental rights might need a 21st century upgrade? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.